Imposter syndrome and insecurity are such difficult emotions to be with, difficult experiences. And they're two things that came up for me hugely during the primary gritty part of my awakening, where all of the past kind of karmic patterning was arising really rapidly, and all of the trauma and stuff was kind of running through quite intensively. And while imposter syndrome is, relatively common, it wasn't a thing for me really before this meaty part of the awakening occurred. I was a performer, and so I was very confident to be on stage, to kind of be in front of people. I was relatively social, and all of a sudden there was this sense that the person that I was presenting to the world wasn't me. And I didn't really know how to cope with that, how to deal with that at the time. So there was a big withdrawal. Before the withdrawal occurred, there was quite a prolonged kind of time of like conflict and insecurity and real shame and overwhelm that was happening for me in social environments. And it went on for many, many years. And then the withdrawal also went on for many, many years as well. So what I thought might be kind of, a few months of going into a cocoon turned out to be almost a decade of my life, of this kind of constant grappling with insecurity and imposter syndrome. And so the old me didn't line up with who I was realizing myself to be, which was so much deeper and so much more in continuity with all things. And yet I didn't really have any way of and still don't really have any way of communicating that with people in a way that's really accessible. And I think that this is a part of the kind of loneliness of awakening, right? Is the depth and the profundity of what is being revealed isn't really something that can be shared with other individuals, although it does happen to be very much shared with all of being, just not at the level that we've been conditioned to share things. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about this process and this experience of imposter syndrome, because I suspect it's probably something that you might be going through as well, or have gone through in the past, of kind of grappling with the incongruence of your individual human self as they kind of been conditioned to be in the world, and not really knowing how to move forward in a social way that was going to feel really at home to who you truly are. I don't know if I have any quick and easy answers as to that, and I think that for me very much this process of doing these videos and beginning to speak more publicly about my experiences is a part of the kind of closure of that very prolonged period of just feeling like I wasn't able to be human in the world. I wasn't able to kind of interact and socialize in the way that many folks might have wanted me to or expected me to. And it's not like I do suddenly feel way more social and way more capable of representing myself in an accurate way. It's just that I've kind of shed most of the shame and most of the fear around what it might look like for me to try and fail. And this is really it, right? Is like imposter syndrome and insecurity are built around this conditioning that says we have to somehow do it right, do it the best, do it in a good way. And that if we don't, we have, put ourselves forward as something that we're not. And of course, the individual self is not who we are, but I don't necessarily see it as a false self either. I think a lot of folks in the awakening realm do describe the individual as a false self. But from my view, from this sort of supreme non-duality which informs my perspective, our individual expressions and our kind of unique, diverse humanness is just as real as the unity that we are, because it arises from that unity, because it is the expression of that unity. And so feeling false or feeling like an imposter, when we're experimenting with our being in the world, when we're exploring different ways to interact and to present ourselves or to interact with others, it's really coming from this deep, deep, deep conditioning that we've been told, we're not enough, we're not we're not enough, or also that we might be too much. And I think that was also a really, really big feature of this particular period of time for me that lasted many, many years, of this constant sense that I was both too much for people and not enough for people. I was not enough of a functional, social, interactive, self-confident human being, and I was far, far too much of this sort of esoteric, deeply feeling beingness that had no boundaries. And for a long time, I interpreted that through Western ideas of pathology, of wrongness. Even though I knew myself to be becoming more aware of my consciousness shifting drastically and starting to emerge with this deep awareness and this sense of interconnectedness with all things, at the same time, there was so much ego structure still present and so much conditioning and so much trauma that it was really easy to still get caught in ideas of right and wrongness in the essence of who we are. That somehow who you are could be wrong, could be a mistake, like this divinity, this great one being, this all-pervading consciousness from which you arise has made a mistake. And it feels quite laughable now to, make so much judgment about the individual, about the diverse expression of humanness, and about my own fallibilities. But at the time, it was really quite crippling. And so I wonder if you've been experiencing some of this during your awakening process, either in the past or presently. If you have, I'd love for you to share in the comments to let me know and to make some connection, because this is what these videos are all about for me, is connecting with other people who have a similar experience unfolding in their life. And just to share, to companion each other on this journey. But I guess, if you are experiencing these things, I'm not an expert, I'm still very much in process. I'm working through some residual fear and sense of imposterness by putting this stuff out into the world on YouTube. But I would like you to know that, there is no mistake. There's absolutely been no mistake in how you have expressed yourself in the past, how you're changing, and how you might express yourself in the future. And while we could create judgment and say, this was false, or I was an imposter, and now I'm more true, we can also see that we couldn't have been otherwise in the past, that it was necessary to pass through many different forms of expression of self in order to arrive at a place where awareness was seen so much more clearly and the ground of our being was seen so much more clearly. So even the unfolding in ways which were false from an individual perspective, as you move forward, you'll see more and more, or I believe you'll see more and more, that actually there is no mistake. And as you start to kind of blossom into the fullness of your being, you can appreciate who you were, who you are, and who you were becoming. Anyway, thank you so much for joining, and please like, subscribe, do comment. I'd love to hear from you and connect more. Have a great day.